started.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the June 28th, 2022 meeting of the Information Technology Strategy and Investment Committee. The time is now 10:01. I'm John Vittner, and I will be representing OPM Secretary Beckham at today's meeting. So organizationally, much has occurred since the committee last met in November 2021. We have a few new additions to the IT Strategy and Investment Committee. First, we have OPM Secretary Beckham, who, as I mentioned, I will be representing today at the committee. He extends his apologies, but welcomes all of you to today's important business. Next, we have our other co-chair of the committee, Commissioner Michelle Gilman. Commissioner, would you like to address the committee?
Thank you so much, John. Really good to see you all, and thank you to all of you for your work, your expertise, your leadership through this process. Given the governor's priorities around IT, investments, and really efficiencies. Again, your work in terms of reviewing so many of our different initiatives means a great deal. So look forward to being a part of this moving forward. And again, really want to extend my appreciation for all your work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, we have a new committee member, Angelo Romano, Core CT Director. Angelo, not to put you on the spot, but would you like to address the committee at all?
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Angelo Romano. I'm the Core CT Director from the Office of the Comptroller, and looking forward to looking at some of these projects. And my main focus is to look at it from the Core CT perspective and make sure that it will integrate if it needs to, or if the functionality currently exists within Core CT. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelo. And lastly, and very important, I have some backfeed here. And lastly, I think we have someone with some backfeed here. Try that again. I would like to introduce Adela, Senior Policy Advisor at OPM. Adele has been taking on many different responsibilities at OPM, not the least of which is overseeing OPM's IT capital investment program, amongst other various responsibilities. Adele, would you like to address the committee today?
Sure. Thank you, John. Pleasure to be with all of you. I think I've worked with each one of you separately on your project. It's a pleasure to be here in Connecticut. I'm fairly new to Connecticut, but not new to public service. I would say 32 years of my professional career have been in public service, and the emotional connection that you develop can be matched by anything else. So it's a pleasure to be back here on this side of the Northeast, and look forward to working with all of you.
John, it's Kim.
Hi, Kim.
We have one other guest with us today. I just wanted to let you know that I have invited our intern that we have from OPM, Kevin Natoni, and he is a student at Middlebury College in Vermont. So when you see OPM intern, he is with us today to learn. So I just wanted you to be aware. Thank you, and welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Kim. And Kevin, welcome to the group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first order of business today is the acceptance of the minutes from the November 2nd, 2021 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
So move.
Oops. Second.
Thank you, Kim. Can I get a second?
It's Mark, second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. The next order of business is the Clean Slate project. With us today, we have Mark Pelka, OPM Undersecretary for Criminal Justice Policy and Planning, and Mark Tazaris, CJIS Program Manager, have both joined us. I believe, Mark Pelka, you're going to be kicking us off. If you can give me 1 minute here, I will put up the slide deck for us.
Thanks, John. Take your time. Looking forward to it.
Can everyone see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Well, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be with you all. I'm long been a fan of John Vittner and Adele, and have learned about the work of the IT Capital Investment Program Steering Committee through them. And I'm really proud to work as Undersecretary of Criminal Justice Policy and Planning here at OPM and share under the same roof the tremendous work that's done. And my hat's off to Kim Kennison, my colleague, for her work and leadership of the section of our operation here at OPM. And I'm here with you today to walk through some slides to provide an overview, as well as a capital IT bonding request associated with implementing the statutes associated with clean slate or automated record erasure. I am honored to be joined by Mark Dezeris, Program Manager at the Criminal Justice Information System, or CJIS. I have the privilege of co-chairing the CJIS Governing Board with Judge Carroll, which from my very first week on the job brought me into close contact and orbit with the outstanding staff and contractors who comprise CJIS. And I think Mark did, as usual, a tremendous amount of work in preparing for today. I think we felt that I might take the lead and at least to keep the momentum going, and recognize when I perhaps exceeded my depth and turn to someone of his expertise to help elaborate. So Mark, I wanted to allow you a chance to say hello and good morning. And so long as the offer still stands, I will do my best to proceed through the presentation, and we reach areas of heightened technical expertise. I might know who to throw a lifeline to or request a lifeline from, I think.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And we basically have an important project that we want to move forward with. And feel free to ask any questions that you may have as we go through the presentation. Thank you.
I'll keep an eye for hands to be raised, and if that proves too cumbersome, please feel free to just unmute and raise a question. This is the agenda for the short slide deck we prepared for you today, connecting you to the public acts. There are 3 of them that were all enacted in 2021 that involve automated erasure. I'll define that in the next slide. Explain to you how the work that was done to gather capital IT bonding requests from the impacted agencies under the executive branch, as well as the judicial branch and other criminal justice stakeholders to conform to the statutes. We'll give an overview of the stakeholder and management approach of how we've embarked and carried out a incredibly complex and intensive implementation project. Benefits, risks of clean slate project, recognizing where we are in the development timeline, key deliverables and schedule, as well as a final cost summary. So John, please feel free to go to the next slide. I'll unpack a bit more detail. As I mentioned, the 3 public acts are Public Act 2132, as amended by Public Act 2133, and finally Public Act 21-1, which is the cannabis statutes that were enacted that year as well. The whole notion of clean slate is to use information technology to enable people to attain greater opportunity, equity, and an opportunity for growth. The issue that it addresses is the large number of people across the United States who carry a criminal record with them. People who have completed their sentence, whether it's incarceration or probation or some other sentence imposed as a result of their conviction. But few people avail themselves of the opportunity to have that criminal record cleared. In Connecticut, they would petition the Pardons Board. And for many, that can be a traumatizing, cumbersome process to move through. Although the Board of Pardons has made significant advances to make technology improvements. Many people don't really know the process, and many people may be very uncomfortable with re-engaging in the criminal justice system. And others may think they need a lawyer or some other assistance to get there. States across the country with similar pardons processes find that only a small percentage of people are aware of this ability and actually move forward to have that record be cleared. So Clean Slate is building on the work of 6 states at a minimum that have enacted Clean Slate laws before. California, New Jersey, Michigan, Utah, Pennsylvania, and Delaware are 6 states that a national Clean Slate initiative listed for us as having enacted such statutes as of March of this year. Still others are debating and raising legislation, so that number may already have grown or will grow. And many of the supporters of this see IT as a means of achieving these noble goals of helping people to overcome barriers to housing, to employment, to education, and other impacts that they see of having this criminal record that follows them around. These records remain following the individual. They're on their criminal record unless or until it is erased. And the number of people who receive a pardon every year is in the hundreds. This would have significant, sizable impacts because it automates it. So instead of people having to appear in front of a board to request erasure, the statutes created by these public acts I mentioned spell out factors that make someone eligible for erasure. They list the eligible offenses, the eligible classes, the waiting period that someone must complete without receiving a new conviction, and other factors that intend to guide to the impacted agencies and branches for when a erasure would occur by operation of law. So this has significant IT system impacts because these IT systems were developed across multiple agencies and branches. We'll show you them shortly, and without necessarily automated erasure in mind. So before these bills became law, the agencies and branches were meeting to provide input, to prepare, and since these bills became effective, have been working to implement them. And what we have in front of you is a budget proposal to accomplish that. We would not be where we were today. Would not be where we are today if not for CJIS's involvement. And we modeled the approach for implementation after the implementation of the criminal justice information sharing system that CJIS is implementing, which connects across 13 criminal justice agencies. This is truly an interbranch cross-government issue. The next slide will show the budget impacts. I think my role in this is because there is no single agency that's responsible for implementing Clean Slate. There are agencies that are listed in the new statutes that are assigned with creating the automated erasure system. There are other agencies whose information system is needed in order to inform eligibility for automated erasure. And then there are others that will use the information resulting from this process to perform the erasure. So CJIS has dedicated crucial assistance in project management with respect to specific IT initiatives. There are weekly meetings that are held to review through the multi-agency coordination to review the components of Clean Slate, to problem solve, to prioritize, and to move forward. It is quite a lot of work. And at the higher level, across a larger array of agencies, there are monthly updates that are provided on progress on where we're moving forward and meeting that. So this budget here reflects the work that needs to continue in order to conform to the statutes. So I mentioned this automated erasure. Essentially what is going to happen when this is fully implemented is the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection will identify, based on the criteria laid out in statute, the criminal records that are eligible for erasure. It will send a signal to other agencies that are connected through the Connecticut Information Sharing System to provide a output of eligibility for erasure, and that update will be performed in a automated manner in those criminal justice information sharing in criminal justice information systems. That will be passed on across all the agencies that are part of CJIS. So that is what comprises the elements of the clean slate. You use here the critical chain project management approach and the various risks and issues and conflict resolution that's occurred along the way. A few slides from now, you'll see a depiction of how CJIS is helping this entire process to assess risk and opportunity. Before we go on to the next slide, I wanted to pause and just ask Mark if there's anything that he would want to elevate for the group or emphasize or encourage me to cover. Just make sure I'm on the right track with covering.
Just briefly, in addition to having an automated capability for Clean Slate, we're anticipating that there probably will be some manual processes as well, depending if the data is available within the various systems that we need in electronic form or paper form. So the emphasis is on the automated erasure first. We're going to run parallel with any manual effort as well, so we can get the job done as per the legislation.
Thank you, Mark. That's exactly right. You know, the statutes lay out that this is a record erasure does not require erasure of paper documents. It's meant to be utilizing electronic record management systems. The intent is, you know, the input that was provided during the legislative session on this was to indicate that the very precise interpretation of the language of the law would be needed to inform the automated erasure that follows. And there are some areas where some manual work will be required, but the effort is to achieve as much automation as possible. These are the IT capital investment requests that were provided by the impacted agencies, CJIS, DESC, Judicial Branch, DOC, Division of Criminal Justice, for the total amount. There have been some state appropriations provided to DESC and Judicial to help to get the work started, and those are reflected in the chart here. The capital investment requests are for contractors to make the necessary enhancements to the information systems via information pathways and connections to carry this out. This work was completed involving the agencies during the exploratory period to really map out how the rubber would meet the road in implementing Clean Slate. There are some additional operating costs that are ineligible for capital IT bonding, and those have been submitted to OPM budget for review for costs again that are ineligible for capital IT bonding. And there are some ongoing costs as well. Those have also been submitted for separate consideration. So there was no way to, you know, it's necessary to remain a full view of both the requests that are being brought before you today, the requests that are being brought forward for agency budget operating expenses, and then the ongoing expenses as well. So these are the IT capital investments needed within the timeline to provide the automated erasure of Clean Slate. These are the CJIS governing board. Fortunately, already has the various criminal justice stakeholders, executive branch agencies, judicial branch around the table. We've been very fortunate because of the fact this impacts state IT systems to seek Mark Raymond's insights where possible because of the transitions underway to bring on a new executive director in CJIS. We've also tapped his expertise in his temporary service as in supporting CJIS while we wait that transition. We've also sought input from the Clean Slate Initiative, which is a group of technical assistance providers that have helped other states to implement this as we try to troubleshoot the challenges along the way. I think that covers the slide. I may have mentioned some other content earlier on that. This slide shows the key benefits. This was legislation enacted, and in all of the meetings that are conducted, we are reviewing, agencies and branches and stakeholders are reviewing those statutes to interpret them and apply them to the automated systems. It automates the erasure of the records. One of the benefits that I mentioned earlier is brings a human element to this, that the people who are impacted by criminal records, right? Those are people who have completed their sentence or are in the community. Many of them have family members. Many of them are seeking to build their lives back together again. So they're seeking an apartment or another rental. They're looking for employment. They're seeking education. And there are collateral consequences of a criminal conviction that are either mandatory, whereby someone is excluded from a pursuit because of that record, or they're discretionary, and that an individual will review that record after conducting a background check to make the decision. And the difficulty is those background checks produce the record regardless of when the event occurred. And it can be challenging when confronted with the record to take into consideration how much time has passed since that record appeared in the record, what efforts were made at rehabilitation since then, to what degree the conviction relates to the pursuit the person is making. And as we know, there are racial and ethnic disparities in the criminal justice system. There is not an equitable distribution of records across race and ethnicity. So Clean Slate is believed to have a strong effect on addressing the racial imbalances of the criminal justice system. And finally, business leaders have been active in many states to embrace Clean Slate because it enables people to more effectively re-enter the workforce. Studies have shown that people's earnings increase following erasure, and this can help people better present themselves to employers for filling the jobs that we have open in Connecticut. The next slide shows you a visualization of the risks. The effective date of these statutes is January 1, 2023. The agencies, branches, and stakeholders began working before the bill became law and worked intensively weekly since then to implement these Clean Slate statutes. The states that have implemented them, consistently indicate this is a complex IT system undertaking, and Connecticut is experiencing nothing different from that. And if it weren't for the collaborative, intensive approach that agencies are bringing, this mountain that is being scaled would be even steeper. So CJIS is producing these risk and mitigation analyses on a regular basis. Agencies are reviewing them, they're being discussed, and they'll be followed. They'll be discussed all the way through the effective date of January 1, 2023. Knowing that date is what it is, I personally observed, every effort to clear paths, address challenges, mitigate risk to move forward to meet these deadlines. But the deadlines are there, and the risks are certainly in place because of the need to meet that date. So there are issues about start dates, project durations, aligning with ongoing priorities and projects and agencies. There are some related IT projects that are sort of underway that are needed in order for Clean Slate to follow. Don't need to go into those details with you, but there's a considerable awareness is what I want to convey of getting this done as quickly as possible. And these dollars that were appearing in front of you today to request are essential to pursuing that deadline. The next slide covers the deliverables so far, scope of work, requirements, building and testing of infrastructure, developing code with the different agencies. That's what I meant earlier with the weekly meetings that are happening, convened by contractors and staff with IT system expertise who are providing project management and coordination across the state agencies and branches. Developing the criteria code for automated process. The manual analysis that Mark mentioned earlier is being carried out where needed. Operation support, including reports and utilities by partner agencies, and then the budgets that we brought before you today. Because there is no single sort of agency that is required to implement Clean Slate, it's a true interbranch and cross-agency enterprise. CJIS has provided that connective tissue. And that's why I think in moments like this, you find someone like me who's trying to provide coordination and collaboration to come in front of you. But this is a request on behalf of all of the agencies and the branches that appear in the request. Mark, I'm wondering if you might be able to just wrap up this slide perhaps, and then maybe if you wouldn't mind please covering the next slide, covering some of the project timelines. There might be some finer points you can add that I neglected in the previous slide, but I'll follow your lead if you suggest otherwise.
Sure. All right, I think you've covered it well at this point, Mark. If we can get to the next slide, that would be good. All right, what we're looking at here is a project Gantt chart. It's a high-level Gantt chart, and on the left, it has the major milestones from the various agencies, stakeholders that we mentioned before, and it's showing the various components with the timeline to the right on a quarterly basis. The significance of this is that basically we have a very short period of time to get all the work done. And everybody's working in coordination, as Mark indicated, and we are moving forward. One of the key things that we need is to get the funding in place as soon as possible, because what's happening right now is we're working with our current resources without funding so we can make the timeline. And by the time we get the funding, then in August or so, assuming everything goes well, then we got to hire people and get them up to speed and so forth. So long story short, it is an aggressive schedule. We expect to deliver the automated portion and follow up with the manual portion. And basically, we just need to get the funding in place. Any questions from anybody on this slide? All right. If not, next slide, please.
Thank you,
Mark.
Yes, and sir, I think this is our final slide. I think you saw the middle column earlier in the presentation listing the capital investment request. To the right column, you see the operating request, which has been submitted to the budget side of OPM to try to steer the requests. The IT capital investment items were brought to the attention within the finance division of the agency for your consideration, and the operating requests were submitted to OPM budget for review there for those components. And that shows you the total. I think this project builds on the investments made prior in CGIS. CGIS obviously has its own deadlines that it's pursuing diligently with the information sharing system and the workflow, electronic workflow. It created a chart. It cleared the path, however, for agencies and branches and stakeholders to work together on these truly interbranch cross-system initiatives. Other states that don't have this capacity, technology, and experience had to create it while implementing Clean Slate. As Mark said, we're not making any. We're being very clear that the timeline is aggressive, and everyone is working as hard as they can to get there. And we appreciate your consideration. The final slide, the next slide, will show you the agencies that comprise the criminal justice information sharing effort within the governing board. And John, I'd be happy to help with any questions or any further information members may wish to have.
And Mark, there's been a lot of marks on this project, by the way,
Yes.
for anyone, at least 4 that I can think of. You did a wonderful job today explaining a very complex set of systems and technology project to the committee. I'd ask if there's anyone on the committee that has any questions today, comments, or feedback for Mark or Mark.
Feel free to call me Mark with a C if it's helpful, or however. But there are a lot of Marks. I'm the only one who spells the name with a C, okay. So that does allow some distinction.
I like that we have our CIO and others using the hand raising. Mark R.
Thanks, John. I didn't notice that Jody had her hand up as well. I just wanted to note, that this sort of policy-driven change, right, affecting multiple different technologies, is one of the areas of why we know that we need to pursue the IT optimization work in the state. That much more of the things that we're undertaking have multiple different tentacles. The more that we use technology, they don't easily fall within any one individual area. So I'm like that this request was really holistic in nature and not individually driven. And I know that took a bunch of time to get that together. So thank you to the team for doing that. I do also, know and sort of inspecting this in a little bit more detail, just the concept that some of the work and those operational costs that we expect are a result of, perhaps not having, all of our data into systems that allow it to be used in a meaningful way. Related to either older technology or records that had not been brought into technology. And so, I would expect that, there's additional, not necessarily clean slate related, but, additional work for some of our agencies to, look at the standing data in their care and find ways to make that available so that we can process that. And, I'm looking forward to, helping to lead many of those activities for those agencies that are part of our scope and partner with those who remain outside. But less a question for the team, but more some overall concepts that I wanted to share with the group. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And again, it's a alignment regarding the work you've taken on, both as being the chief IT officer and also helping during the transition period in CGIST to give us the ability to seek your expert input on this. From where I sit, I see Clean Slate as providing something of a pressure test for the electronic record management systems impacted by these new state statutes for automated erasure. These systems were not designed with an anticipation that one day they would be asked to carry this out. CGIST provided the connective tissue to enable it, but it is a IT intensive project that brings the input of people who know these systems better than anybody else. And it's really testing the capabilities of these systems to meet the statutes. So I did want to say that I hope that there are bigger picture, longer term impacts from going through a process like this, a pressure test like this, for a broader aims that IT systems may have in Connecticut.
Thank you, Mark. Jody, you have your hand up as well.
Thank you. I'm Jody Hill-Lilly, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Children and Families. I'm not sure if I missed introductions. I was about 2 minutes late to the call. I got held up on another call. But I wanted to, just pause and congratulate the state of Connecticut for its participation in Clean Slate. And I'm super excited about this initiative for obvious reasons. As the racial justice lead for DCF, I believe this will hugely impact the programmatic side in terms of the disproportionality that shows up also not only in criminal justice but in DCF. So kudos to everyone working on this. I make the decisions for employment hiring when staff have a hit or potential candidates have a hit. And so I see every day people with criminal records from 17, 18 years ago, 20 years ago, and we are having to make decisions about whether or not we can hire them. And depending on, who's presenting the information, if it's not me, my predecessors or people who come after me make judgments on that. And so the erasure of these records really could have a profound impact on one's employment. I also, DCF is a major user in this, in that criminal records checks are involved in all of our assessments of children, youth, and families. And we make decisions about whether or not to open cases, whether or not we are involved longer or not, and whether or not somebody who's interested in caring for kids as a foster parent, relative, or kin are suitable for that. So we use the criminal records, and again, having to use our judgment on whether or not, crimes that happened a long time ago should impact that decision. So I wholeheartedly support this. Excited to see it. think it will have an incredible impact on disproportionality and racial equity, and the resources of people who have worked hard to change their life and have this criminal record, overshadowing their progress. I had one sort of technical question. When the record, when you build the system, will the erasure be complete? The erasure, will it be complete erasure, or will it show up as records that have been erased? Do you know what I mean? Like, well, we won't be able to tell technically whether or not there was something there or not.
Thank you, DC Hill Lily, for your comments and the impact that the Clean Slate initiative will have on racial disparity, disproportionality in the criminal justice system is profound because of the disparities that are found in the distribution of criminal records across the population. To answer your question, the term erasure in statute is used. There is not a new clean slate term, such as a clean slate erasure or specific variant of erasure. It uses the same function that is performed by the court or by the Board of Pardons when it carries out an erasure. So for someone who has a conviction erased per the statutes created by this law, the agencies that manage the criminal record system will erase. So it will not turn up because it has been erased. Now, the laws are written according to convictions for each offense. So an individual may have a case or a record with multiple convictions, and not all the convictions may be eligible for erasure. Some may be excluded because insufficient amount of time has passed since the conviction, or it may be an ineligible offense. But for the sake of the erasure of a conviction per the statutes, that person will receive an erasure. And I think for people who never contemplated that erasure occurring, it will be produce a major impact as they pursue rebuilding their life and applying for various pursuits.
But I don't think it did it answer the question. Are you saying that it's going to be stamped with it has been erased, and so that it, like in 2004 you had a conviction, and now because that's 18 years ago, is it stamped that has been erased so that the notation is still there, or no, it is entirely gone as if it never occurred in my life?
Within the electronic record management system, a notation will be added that this is an erased record. If a background check is conducted, the erased conviction will not appear.
Thank you.
The erased conviction will not appear. It will not be noted that it was erased either to me as a recipient of the background check.
That is correct. People are encouraged, once this goes into effect, to carry out a background check on themselves. And the aim is, what this law accomplishes is an erasure of the record, so that when a background check is conducted, the erased record will not appear on that background check.
So let me just, I'm sorry to get technical, but thank you, Kim. I think if that was Kim, I can't tell who's talking.
It is. It is.
When I receive a criminal record, I look at them all the time. I will be able to see that there was a charge that was nollied. I won't be able to see the charges. I won't be able to see, much, but I will see that it's nollied. So when I'm picking up that piece of paper, will I see anything indicating that something was erased or not?
My understanding is that a nollie 13 months after the prosecutor offered it, that record is erased. It goes away. We need some more information on why a nollie is showing up on the background checks that you're conducting. And I say that because my understanding is that by using the term erase for clean slate, it leads to the same action and outcome that occurs when a Board of Pardons or a court or a case is dismissed or a case is nollied. So I just would need a bit more information of what you're seeing and why you're seeing that.
Got it. Got it. Also with DCF, for example, if you have a case substantiated, so we went in unsubstantiated, so we went in, we did an investigation, we found nothing. That case is unsubstantiated. That unsubstantiated finding shows up on a record for a period of time, and then after a while it goes away and you don't see anything.
I see.
So that's why I'm just trying to find out, because I just curious as to what that record will look like to the receiving agencies. That's all. Thank you, though. I think you answered my question.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me a couple of attempts to get it. You were asking a very thoughtful and technical question. It took me a bit of time maybe to get at, but thank you for your patience. And any follow-up you need to have, happy to assist.
If there are no other questions, I don't see any hands from the committee members. Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve?
This is Mark.
I'd like to make a motion to, oh, go ahead.
I think Mark.
Go ahead.
I will make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mark. Can I get a second?
I'll second the emotion.
Thank you, Jody.
Motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The project is approved. We will request those funds be placed on an upcoming bond commission agenda. Our next order of business is the Department of Administrative Services Regulatory Services Boilers and Elevators Automation Project. With us today is Darren Hobbs, Director, Regulatory Compliance at the Department of Administrative Services. Darren, would you like to kick off the presentation for the committee?
Excellent. Thanks, John. Yeah, definitely. Thanks to everybody on the committee for taking the time to hear me today. Appreciate that. And to John and Adele and Jim over the last few months helping me get to this point. It's been tremendous, and I really appreciate your help on this. And of course, to all my DAS colleagues who have been behind me all the way and helped me fill in the blanks on a lot of the questions I had. So John said I'm the Director of Regulatory Compliance at DAS. That involves the Office of the State Building Inspector, the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and a team that we have for education of code officials. Part of my group is responsible for the inspection and certification of elevators, escalators, ski lifts, and other lifting devices around the state of Connecticut. And another part of my group is responsible for the inspection and certification of boilers and hot water heaters. Pretty much every single boiler and hot water heater, except for those in small residential properties. So anything in a multifamily or in a commercial building, if there's a boiler or hot water heater, our team certifies and inspects those too. So this project is looking to automate some of our existing processes. The request is for about $182,000 as shown on the screen, which is a combination of the initial implementation and the first year of subscription and support, which will become due at the end of the implementation, roughly 6 months from when we kick off. We have an existing back of office system which processes a lot of this for us already. What we don't have is the front end that interfaces with the customer. So right now we do a lot of manual work with checks and mailing of invoices and certificates, which we're looking to eliminate through the automation of this process with a portal that the customers can interact with us through. Of course, in doing so, then we better serve our customers. The software itself is known as Jurisdiction Online. I think it began life as Jurisdiction Online many years ago, but it's now owned by a company called Central Square, who we do business with. We currently use their back of office system for all that manual processing input that we do. It goes into an existing Central Square solution back of house. So what we're looking to do is take their other part of their solution, which is the front end, and just bolt that to the front. So it'll be a seamless integration in terms of technology. Right now, like I said, our interface is entirely manual with our customers. We don't have any automated interface. So we spend a lot of time doing that manual work. And we process about 9,000 transactions a year manually, which then have to be keyed into that existing back of office system. So if we can implement this SaaS solution, the software as a service solution, which will take about 6 months, we should be able to automate almost all of that over a relatively short period of time once our customers converted over. I put this last bullet point on the slide. I'm aware that the governor's directive to Secretary Becker may have superseded this recently. This was just in the slide that I prepared prior to that directive being issued. So we'll obviously have to look at how we handle those credit card transaction fees that we initially had planned to pass on to the customer. Whether that's a 1-year hiatus or whether that's a longer term thing, I'm not sure. We'd have to work through that a little bit. Next slide, please. So who would be involved with the project? Our stakeholders internally are mostly our existing teams that process these boiler and elevator safety inspections and certificates. We would also work closely, of course, with our finance division at DAS to make sure that what we do here is properly integrated so that the money we receive is sent in the right direction and received and accounted for properly. We also have those external stakeholders. We probably have, I think, 16,000 elevators and escalators, etc., plus another 10 or so thousand boilers and hot water heaters that have unique customers for probably about 50% of those. So we're into thousands of customers that we have to deal with in this transition. We would be the lead agency, of course, through Commissioner Gilman's DAS and Noel Petra's Real Estate Construction Services Division and my team here at the Office of the State Building Inspector through regulatory compliance. I would lead on the project with my team in support. We would involve as many of those stakeholders as we can and need to during the process with regular assessments of progress and reporting of progress. We would, of course, have regular meetings with the project team, the vendor, and our internal stakeholders and make sure that we resolve any conflict through those meetings. And anytime that we needed policy clarification, we would work with DAS legal, finance, procurement, and BITS as needed to work through those things. Many of those teams have already provided me input to the development of this project and the scope of this project to date. So we're fairly confident we have our ducks in a row. From a risk management point of view, it's a relatively simple, straightforward project, simple implementation, but of course we would challenge our assumptions and consult our stakeholders as need be. Next slide, please. So as far as the benefits of the project are concerned, we can split them into quantitative and qualitative. The fiscal stuff is, it's a fairly small number, but if you look at what we currently pay for paper envelopes, we lease an envelope stuffer, for example, we would save about $29,000 a year just by eliminating all that manual paper processing. Where we get our biggest bang for the buck, which is harder to quantify, is that we would probably save somewhere in the order of 4,500 hours a year by eliminating these manual processes. Now, that's not all going to result in staff savings because those staff are going to be repurposed. A lot of those staff have ambitions to do more challenging work, and we're going to repurpose their positions to meet their expectations and also fulfill some of our other vacancies and needs that we have internally too. So, but there are a number of hours to be saved. From a qualitative point of view, of course, we're going to improve the revenue collection. We're going to have a much better system for auditing and tracking how we receive and process payments. We'll make the service available to our customers 24/7, 365. Of course, processing 9,000 transactions manually inevitably will lead to errors. So eliminating those manual transactions will reduce our number of errors and corrections that need to be made. And again, like I hinted at, we're going to improve the quality of work for our employees, implementing a more modern system, modern way of working, and allowing them to take on more challenging and varied work. Next slide, please. So as I said before, the project will take approximately 6 months to implement. There are milestones at 12 weeks, 2 weeks, 9 weeks, 2 weeks, and 1 week. They're split the payments across those 20% in 5 pieces from kickoff through the accounting implementation to the development of the portals to the user acceptance testing and the rollout and the training, and then finally the go live acceptance at the end. Next slide, please. Those costs are split as shown on the screen. The implementation total is about $140,000, the project, which is split between the technical portion of that work, the $117,000, and the central square project management element of it, which is $23,000. And then subscription of about $42,000 a year is split between 3 elements. The permitting portion of it, which is a separate module that they provide to support the portals, is $6,000 a year, and then each of the portals for boilers and for elevators is $18,000 a year for subscription and support, which is the total cost of $182,400 in that first year. Next slide, please. So as I said before, the project will take approximately 6 months to implement. There are milestones at 12 weeks, 2 weeks, 9 weeks, 2 weeks, and 1 week. They're split the payments across those 20% in 5 pieces from kickoff through the accounting implementation to the user acceptance testing and the rollout and the training, and then finally the go live acceptance at the end. Next slide, please. think that might be the last slide, right, John?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, excellent. So I know there was a quick fly through. Happy to take any questions. So it was a fairly simple, straightforward project, but it's just important work that we do with these teams.
Mark.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Darren. You know, one of the things that we are working on through our digital government efforts is to, you know, align that business and resident experience for the things that they need to interact with the state, to be able to provide reminders to them of, hey, something's due, in electronic forms, and sort of just make their life easier. You know, and one of the areas that presents itself is around security, right? The logins, the integration, the navigation, how people get to those kinds of things. And fully recognizing that, you know, there's value of vendor-supported tie-in to existing backend systems. How much have we looked at that sort of integration of security, like these individuals who will now need to sign into a system, and, you know, making that support tie into other efforts like the business one-stop, the enterprise identity management that we're setting up. How much of that is included in these sort of costs that we're seeing?
So, Mark, as you know, I'm not an expert in IT projects, but I did have the vendor provide a document that explained their approach to security of the data that they'll be handling, and I think that was reviewed. It was sent through you, but maybe reviewed by David Labadia or Deb in your team. And I think at the time the response was favorable to that. Now, as far as single sign-on and some of the other integration, we did talk with the vendor about that, and that is a possibility. It's not included in this rollout. It's something we've agreed with Deb and David through your team to go back and revisit at some point in the future.
Yeah, that at some point in the future, like once you establish someone's identity in a new place, it's really hard to go back. So, you know that the rollout here, like the time to do that with the existing identities we have is at the front, not later on, because it actually doing it later makes it incredibly much more difficult because you've got multiple different identities you're trying to consolidate. So, you know, would love to revisit that topic at the front end, and even if there's some costs associated with doing that, there's a benefit for doing that together up front.
Understood. Thank you.
Mark, are you maybe suggesting that the project at this point be more aligned with the work that the digital services team is already doing, including things around security and identity management? You know, given that this is relatively small scale compared to many of our other projects, and certainly small scale in terms of the work effort currently underway with digital services.
Yeah, John, then there are pieces of this that definitely should. You know, the things that are, you know, specific to a vendor. I don't know that yet, but I do think that there are both sort of rollout, user experience, and not security of how the data is stored that we were talking about earlier, but just the security from a user experience perspective that we would want to definitely have that level of engagement.
I think Adele, I don't know if you want to add anything into this conversation. You may have some comments or feedback, but I do think the credit card processing is clearly one of those areas where there should be some commonality and alignment. Adele, you haven't?
Yeah, happy to do that, John. I think Kim had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so happy to chime in after Kim.
All right, Kim, you're muted.
No, that is absolutely fine. I was just really piggybacking off of your comment, John and Mark, because I know that in the preliminary stages when this project came forward, the use of the existing digital one-stop funds was in question. And so I wasn't sure if that was still an open item or resolved. That was where I was at, because I hadn't heard.
We are still inspecting that, the things that we have in that bucket, if we add something in, would be taking something out. So, it's not something that we're done looking at. We're looking at it a little bit more in depth over the last couple of days, but I don't have an answer for that for today.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. Adele, did you, I apologize. I just thought you may have something to add to this.
No. I think Mark has already mentioned that between now and the bond authorization meeting, I think a deeper dive will take place and a decision will be made. We wanted to err on the side of caution and put this project up today, just in case that doesn't pan out. But I think Mark understands that we need to look at this, and the decision will be made shortly. As far as credit cards, I think I think Darren described it best. Once the policy is clarified on how the credit card fee will be passed or absorbed, we'll have a decision to inform the vendor. But the best advice I can give right now is that whatever the current practice is that we continue that current practice until June of 2023.
Thank you. Any other comments or feedback from the committee members? Dennis, saw your name first.
Yeah, again, it's similar to what Mark was suggesting, and Darren, I know this is an important project to your group, but there's been development with consumer protection and others, right, using one stop in that common platform that I think is beneficial. I keep on saying this to my group here at Deep, how important it is for our users to have that single sign-on and be able to use, an enterprise system really to do a lot of the business that they're doing for the state. So I didn't know, we have our own registration inspection system that's, and we're looking to make that migration to that one-stop platform. And already some of that development has already been done. I don't know if you've explored that, if it fits you, or really, this seems, it's more subscription, and I don't know if it just fits what you're doing, on the boilers and elevator side. But it seems like that, there could be something already under development or developed that you may be able to utilize and capitalize on it as well, just to make that migration again with customer information already available and profiles already set up in that one-stop system. So I don't know if you explored that or had any of those conversations.
Dennis, I'm not sure of the specifics of the system you're talking about. If it's based on e-license, then we did look at e-license. It wasn't a good fit for a couple of different reasons, but I'm not sure beyond that what your system entails.
Yeah. I was looking at the cost too, and again, for capital versus operational, it is, and this is a OPM question, I guess, Kim, you could answer that better. It's not, overall, it's not significant, it's important, right? And it's got to be stood up, but it seems more like an operating cost almost. Well, a good portion of it is, but there is some initial development as well. So those are my only questions here.
Thank you, Dennis. Did I see one other hand up a minute ago? Oh, Commissioner Gilman.
Good morning again. I want to thank Darren for bringing this project forward. I think in terms of the division and the department that he runs, this will help us greatly. This type of solution will help us greatly, not only from a people power perspective, but also in terms of a business ownership perspective, in terms of our relationships with our customers, and then also from an auditing perspective to really ensure that we have a stronger system in place for our billing, for our inspection processes moving forward. So I understand that there are some questions to resolve in terms of security and some connectivity into the one stop, but I also recognize that the impact on this effort to our customers and to our division will be significant. So really appreciate the time in moving this forward. Darren, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Commissioner.
John, I believe Greg had his hand up, but I don't see it anymore. So I'm not sure if he still needs to ask a question.
You said Greg?
Dennis?
No, Greg Donovan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Greg, if it's okay, we'll move on if your question has been answered. So, okay.
Great. Any other questions or feedback from the committee members?
One other question, and that has to do with the billing side of life. When I hear that there's a billing, I'm assuming that this is going to be all inclusive. Is the billing have connectivity? And because when I always think about billing, I'm thinking of core. And is it related or is it a standalone?
So we worked through with Yoleda's team on understanding how I call it the bucket system works, right? So that making sure we can code the received payments to land in the right bucket. Where those buckets are, I don't understand the back of the house finance system well enough, whether that's core or whether that's some other system. I don't know how that works behind the scenes. But that was a discussion I had between Yoleda's team and Mark's team a couple of months ago, to make sure that we would be able to automate that landing of the money.
You're on the. Can you comment?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. Yes, we did have a meeting with Darren and our accounts receivable team just to understand how we collect and how we process the batches. So that's where we came up with this, with the solution that would be the best way to go. We did explore the e-licensing, as Darren mentioned, and it's that portion won't work. I hope I answered the question.
So you will be feeding the information from his system to your system, and it will be the billing will be coming out of his system? Is that what I'm hearing? Or no, it's a dual entry. Somebody's got to enter that into your system.
So we were talking about somehow feeding the batches to the system. So it would create the batch and we can just feed it to the core.
Kim, if I can interject for a minute, Darren, it might be helpful to explain how do you handle billing today and how it will change with the system.
So 99% of the payments that we receive out of those 9,000 transactions come in as a check, and the check is received by my team. They match that check to a record in our back of house system and manually key in the amount received on the day that it was received. Then they would send those checks with a batch report over to Yoleda's team. They would manually process those checks and enter them in as a payment into their accounting solution, which may or may not be core. Yoleda, I'm not going to speak for you on what that end of the system is. So currently it's manually handled twice on a check by check.
So yeah, so once we receive the payments, we do process in core. So there was really a lot of manual process that happening behind the scenes. With this would eliminate that process that Darren Teams does, right? So we will post everything in the system and we can just take that information and process in core. We still gonna need to record in core, but it's just takes the first hand off collecting the checks, collecting all that information.
So that part's the automation.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Yolita. Are there any other questions or feedback from the committee? No. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. It's Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Can I get a second?
This is second.
I second.
I think that was Mark. Mark, thank you. All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Project's approved, and we'll make our request once we have the determination of whether or not this will be folded into the digital services project or otherwise. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, team.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, we're sort of on mark here, I think. So we're about halfway through our agenda items, and I think it's just past 11 o'clock. So our next order of business is again from the Department of Administrative Services, Collection Services, their document scanning project. And I believe we have Michael Burrell here, the Director of the Collection Services Division at the Department of Administrative Services.
Thanks, John.
Michael, would you
Good
like
morning.
to present to the committee, please?
Yes, thanks, John. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking the time to take a look at the exciting world of collections. I know it's going to be stimulating, but we're going to get through it. Collections, just for a background, we collect $1.3 billion of recoverable money based on block grant and federal reimbursement, plus the recovery side, which is estate, probate estates, and small and large estates and individual settlements. But what we're trying to do is take a system that is heavily manual to digitize it. And our first step is really to digitize our paper systems that we have right now. Currently, we have files that total about 45,000 that are situated on the 10th floor at Columbus Boulevard, taking up a lot of space. We also need the digitization to make everything more efficient for us to access. We basically have a time limit to make a collections claim. And because this heavily manual process is what we have now, we stand to lose claims because of that. So this process, with the help of Scan Optics, will eliminate that manual process and digitize everything we have, including the mail. The mail currently has, we have about 400 pieces of mail per day, and it has to be manually stamped, manually distributed. And with that process, things could get lost. And hopefully with this project, it'll be digitized into a system that we can actually get to. So with Scan Optics' help, the business processes will be changed. Logistics and transportation, as you can see on the screen, the document preps, they're going to do the document preps for us, identify what we need, and come up with a system that we can use digitally. Next survey. Project stakeholders, DS, we are the project stakeholders, and I will be the lead person along with my assistant director, Frank Rivera. He's my IT guy. He's pretty much, he knows more than I've forgotten or whatever. So anyways, but yes, Frank and I will be the two people that will be directing this as it goes forward. Next slide, please. What we want to do is take a manual process into the digitization. We believe that doing this, accessing digital files, we will be able to be more efficient. We will able to communicate with other departments who have manual systems. Will reduce our space on the floor. We have close to 200 file cabinets that we have. So we'd like to eliminate that and comply with audit findings. Our audit findings are, they've identified our issue with manualization. So we're hopefully going to, with this one process, we'll update that as well. Next slide, please. Major milestones. We're going to kick off once we get funding, hopefully we get funding. Phase 1 will be preparing all the files initially for digitization. We will identify and box everything with ScanOptics just in case we actually need those files. ScanOptics has expressed that we can get those files back if we need them within 24 hours. The scanning of the mail is going to be a little more labor intensive by ScanOptics because they're developing our access for digitalization and our alpha breakdowns. So when a piece of mail comes in, it'll be directed right to that worker within a time limit. We have 2 phases. The first phase is going to be basic phasing of getting our old documents in, and then the second phase would be the mail. Next slide, please. Project costs, as you can see, $331,000. Annual scanning fee, that's the mail process, is $93,000 per year. Currently, we have 4 individuals that work our mail system. I've figured it out. It's usually 2 hours a person. It takes us about 2 hours each person to do the mail, and it comes to about $300,000 in employee time that we are pushing towards every day to do this mail project. So that $300,000 annual fee is something that is directly related to the mail. This annual mail scanning fee will reduce that, and we believe this is going to be a cost neutral for us because we won't need to use those 4 individuals, and those people can focus their true job, which is collection services. So that is that's a summary, basic. It's not as elaborate as the things that I've heard this morning, but in a nutshell, this will make our job much easier going forward. Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to talk.
Thank you, Michael. So for the committee members, there are any questions or comments for Michael? And looks like Dennis, you have your hand up. Thanks.
Yeah, just a quick question, Michael. On as agencies migrate or push information to you, likewise, how's that going to be converted? You were talking about existing files, and I know you said ongoing mail scanning, but is there going to be some platform? We would send. Obviously we have a lot of receivables that would fall on that. We refer to collections. Is there going to be a platform that we would push our backup data with that to you?
Yes, there will be a platform. Also, we have there's an initiative with probate administration to have all their files digitized also and send that through electronically, and this will allow us to use that, which would be beneficial to us because a lot of our mail comes from probate. So I anticipate the mail the amount, the cost per year to get reduced because that mail will be reduced because of that interaction with probate administration. But the platform would be, and I'm not sure if I'm not comfortable with that, but let me see if I can.
So Mike, I can probably answer that.
Oh, good.
As far as the platform is concerned. This is Frank Rivera. How's everybody doing today? So as far as the platform, the ScanOptics initially will be working off their own proprietary repository where they would capture all the data and store it and make it available to us. This is going to be the initial phase of the data storage platform. Ultimately, it would be folded into our own resources that we already have on tap, such as FileNet that we own and use and utilize for data storage. So once we get this funded and the processes get laid out, then we'll talk about how we're going to funnel the information into our own FileNet repository, if you will, for storage purposes, and then no longer have the dependency of having the scan optics have to, have the additional cost or expense to store the data and provide their own proprietary medium to, keep this stuff, whether it's cloud-based on their cloud or our cloud. So the initial project consists of like a temporary repository through ScanOptics until our internal IT staff has had the opportunity to stand up our FileNet system and kind of have the two platforms converge and line up the data fields so that we can accept the data in the same method that their system is accepting it to deliver to us.
Dennis, I hope that answered your question.
So, and I also want to mention, I know this is for another project, but this initial request for this project is the first phase of our multi-approach digital footprint as far as doing work in the future. We're also looking into modernizing our case management system, and then all of this information, once digitized, it can be folded into the new case management system. So the first step is to digitize all our physical paper case records that we have on the floor to the tune of 45,000 case records. Once we digitize all that information, it makes it more accessible for the workers, being that we're now working in a remote environment with teleworking. People are still coming into the office just for the sake of, retrieving a physical case folder. With them having access to it digitally at their fingertips remotely, this reduces time, increases revenue, because now they can get to that constituent or that attorney on the same day, as opposed to, on their next scheduled in-office day, which, there are time limitations to responsive. So this is why it's super important for us to digitize and make our information, our case records available digitally, as well as our mail.
Like Frank said, this is our first phase. We have systems that are 20 plus years old, and our IT staff has been, keeping our systems going through Band-Aids and tape. So this is our first process, our kind of like phase one, if you will, and then the system that we want in the near future, which we're working on, will talk to each other and make us even more efficient. Because we really, right now, because of our manual systems, we don't yet know what we're losing. Because we have so many sources of claims coming in, the information kind of gets bogged down, and we can only do so much with the manual process. So this part eliminates all the loss of data and the loss of files and the lack of efficiency. It's a step one to a system that we're going from, sticks and rocks to actual technology. So, if you will.
I think it's fair to say that you're sort of building a foundation here, Michael,
right,
which can then be built upon. But for today's consideration, it's really the cost and the structure of the foundation itself. So
right.
I don't know if that answered your question, Dennis. Hopefully.
Yeah, it did.
For any other committee members, any comments, feedback, questions? All right. Hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Jody. Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other questions or feedback? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes and the project's approved. We will make a request for this to be placed on an upcoming bond commission agenda.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Gilman, did I miss your hand? I apologize.
You did not, and I apologize for going out of order here, but I did want to just take a moment to thank both the committee, the investment meeting committee, and our DAS team for all of the review on this project. And really, again, appreciate the work on this, given all the different issues that we have in terms of reporting for both our collections, and then various questions regarding those reports and what our various fees and other collections look like from year to year basis with our legislature. So again, appreciate just the brief moment of time to thank the committee for their support of this, and also to our DAS team. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. So our next order of business is, and I think it's our last agenda item for the day, is the Office of the Treasurer Debt Management Systems Project. From the Office of the Treasurer, we have Sarah Sanders, Assistant Treasurer for Debt Management, and Richard Lee, Principal Debt Management Specialist, joining us. Assistant Treasurer Sanders, would you like to address the committee, please? And I will put up your presentation.
Thank you very much, John. And if it's okay, I'd like to give some introductory remarks, and then I'm going to be turning it over to Richard to go through the actual slides. Because this is a project that's been a long time coming. I just want to give a little background. I also want to take a moment to thank John, Adele, and Commissioner Raymond and Kim, because we did some preliminary working back and forth that I think made our proposal stronger. And I think that was helpful for us today. But I'm Sarah Sanders. I'm the Assistant Treasurer for Debt Management at the State Treasurer's Office. I've been working here for 23 years, 13 years as the Assistant Treasurer leading the division. And we are a relatively small group of only 12 employees. We have 5 managers that manage various bonding programs, the General Obligation Bonding Program, Transportation, Clean Water, Yukon. And then we have a small 5-unit accounting team. And we are responsible for managing $26 billion of outstanding state debt under various programs. And we utilize 2 major systems to manage that debt. One is a debt management system that was built internally in Fox Pro, which is an older computer language and no longer is supported. And we are utilizing the expertise of a retired programmer who's a Fox Pro programmer to assist us. And then we also have another system we use, for lack of a better word, we call it the AAI database, authorized, allocated, and issued database. And that's really the legal tracking of items that are authorized for bonding. And there's 3 phases. The legislature authorizes, the bond commission allocates, and then the Treasurer's Office issues. And it's very important for us to also have that system to track in detail, to make sure we aren't issuing items twice, so that we know exactly what we're issuing. We issue tax exempt bonds, so we have to analyze every bond commission item to make sure it's eligible under the federal regulations for tax exempt financing. So these are the 2 major systems that we're using. The AAI database was also developed internally in Access and has its limitations as well. So we've been working for years on this, to be honest, and on and off, because we've had other priorities getting our bond issuances done. We issue sometimes up to $4 billion of new bond issues per year. But we've spent over the years looked at what other states have used. We've done we've had different systems demonstrated to us. We spent a lot of time with the state of California, was very generous with their time on the research that they had done as well. And ultimately, it culminated in January 2021 with issuing an RFP. I did receive some help from Tina over at DAS. I'm not sure if she's still there, but she helped me develop the RFP. We issued it, and we allowed bidders to bid either a canned package, because there are canned packages out there for debt management, or a customized system. So it was a kind of a large RFP, a lot of pieces. We received several responses. Some firms did not respond, which was disappointing to us. But we did interview 5 firms, and then we had second interviews with 3 firms. And ultimately, after reviewing what was out there, we recommended to the treasurer that, and he approved, the best option to move forward was to employ a system that is a really kind of the state-of-the-art bond management system. It's a canned system called DBC. It's used by all the investment banks. It's used by Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York. The strengths of it are that it provides a lot of capabilities we don't currently have in terms of tracking some of our debt in ways that we're doing on spreadsheets that could be done within the system. It's when we issue bonds, we can just upload all the information right into the debt manager system. And it is continually upgraded for industry standards. So we felt that it was the state of the art for the outstanding debt portion of our needs. But then of course, we have our AAI database, which is kind of our Connecticut specific way of legally issuing debt. Every state has different processes. And so there we found that DBC really, they don't customize. They're a canned system. They do upgrades, but we had calls with them seeing if they could have all the fields that we would need to track some of the legal information, and ultimately determined that they really couldn't meet that need. So we looked at a different option for our AAI database, which actually works quite well to begin with, except that it is in Access, and I understand we want to move away from that. So we looked at a proposal from one of the firms that we thought might be a good fit for enhancing our AAI database, and not just making it more robust, but converting it to SQL.net, if I'm using the right phraseology, but that would allow for an audit trail. But then as we started thinking about it, there's so many steps in the process of debt issuance where we're re-entering that same authorization, allocation, and issuance figures. And we saw an opportunity here to really streamline that whole system. For instance, Dennis and Kim know that every time an item goes through bond commission, our bond counsel goes to them and asks questions about those items through a tax questionnaire, okay? And that's by bond commission item, section, act, so forth. And then you guys send back a questionnaire, then they clear it and send us an Excel spreadsheet, and then we transcribe the information, and then we ultimately issue it, and then our counsel produces closing documents with those items in it. All of this time, information is being re-entered that really is the same information. And one of the critical things is to be honest, some of this is even being tracked at OPM and comptrollers, but we are the only entity that tracks the important issuance portion. So we started having some calls with Joe Singh. He's a Connecticut-based firm that seemed about the right size and skill level for what we were talking about here, and about ways that we could, the first phase would be to really make the current system more robust, provide an audit trail, but then to find ways to streamline our processes. And we don't necessarily have it all worked out, but we see a lot of opportunities to enhance the way that we're currently doing things with regard to our debt issuance, and allow other agencies to be able to access the system, to allow our bond counsel to be able to see exactly what got issued, what's remaining, and to allow OPM to see what got issued. Because right now they have to send us an email, we have to look it up in the system. So we think that there's a lot of opportunities for streamlining and enhancement. I can't say that we've worked all of that out. In the Singh proposal, we do have phases. We did talk to Adela about receiving allotments over time as we become more definitive on some of those enhancements, but there really, I think, is some opportunity there. And I noticed that one of the other presenters did talk about risks, and I don't know that we have that in our presentation so much, but You know, while the state treasurer's office is charged with issuing the state's debt and managing the state's debt, it really is important to every citizen of the state that we make our debt payments. If we were to not have adequate computer systems to allow us to manage our state debt and were to miss a debt payment, that would be a default and would impact our ability to access capital and the financial reputation of the state. We have a lot of reporting requirements that we get out of these systems. Federal requirements to disclose to bondholders, things required just to issue our debt. We have state requirements and reporting that we need to do. And we have a very large portion of the budget. Our debt service budget is $2.4 billion of the general fund. So it is a high risk area. And I also think there will be savings, hard to quantify right now, because we do have bond counsel sitting out there re-entering figures that don't need to be re-entered. They're should all be centralized, and they should be able to log into this system and clear items for us to issue. So with that, that's how we came here and how we came to this recommended solution, utilizing a state-of-the-art system for our outstanding debt, and then utilizing some customization to meet the kind of Connecticut specific legal issuance side. And with that, I'll turn it over to Richard. Try not to, obviously replicate, but I think he prepared some more information. And I also want to say that Greg Donovan is on the call. He is a newer member of our team who's the key member.
Good morning. My name's Richard Lee. I'm a principal debt management specialist. I've been with the state for 8 months, but I have over 30 years of debt management issuance experience. My background also includes an undergraduate degree in math and computer science, and I have 15 years of experience with DBC Debt Manager, which is one of the recommended systems. Let's see. So we're on the project Stakeholder. Okay, DMD will be the primary stakeholder for the project, and other potential significant users will be bond counsel, OPM, OFA, and court. And departments receiving bond-funded appropriations will see improvements in providing information related to their projects. That information is needed for IRS purposes. DMD will be the lead agency, and I'll be working with vendors to manage the day-to-day activities. And any issues will be elevated to Sarah, who can then decide them or elevate them to the deputy treasurer or ultimately to the treasurer. During the design phase, other significant users will be interviewed for requirements development. And I'll provide results of the requirements study. And then after that, monthly reports on development status. Next slide. Project's benefits include modernization of legacy systems to ensure continued availability, provide a foundation for expanded capabilities, integration of the two legacy systems to avoid a lot of duplication, improve data quality and integrity, system security and data tracking will also be added, and then cloud access to allow expanded access to outside users or users outside of the DMD division. Next slide. Project Milestones, basically 3 phases. The first phase is design, where we'll do the requirements study and then develop an overall plan for the development of the AI replacement by Sing, and also how he proposes to integrate it with the DMS replacement or DBC. Phase 2 will be the actual implementation, but primarily related to replacing the system as currently used, just to make sure we now have continued access to the systems. And then phase 3 will be expansion of the capabilities of the system. We estimate that the 3 phases can be substantially completed within 1 year. Next slide. Project cost summary. We estimate that all 3 phases will cost approximately $995,000. About 2/3 of the cost is related to AI replacement and integration with the DMS replacement, and then 1/3 of the cost will be related to DVC. Ongoing costs are estimated on the high end at $250,000 a year. $145,000 of that includes a fixed fee quote for support and maintenance of the AI replacement system by Sing. That amount includes additional tweaking and enhancements that always occur with the new system. After a few years, when the system is settled down, we estimate a substantially lower ongoing maintenance fee just to maintain system security, apply updates to the underlying database programs, operating system, and host systems. That's it. I'm available for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sarah and Richard. So for the committee, are there any questions or comments or feedback for the treasurer's office?
I have one question, John.
Sure. Hi, Angela. Thanks.
Good morning. Good morning. You spoke of an integration to Core CT. My question is, to the current systems that are being replaced, do they have some type of integration to Core CT? And is the new proposed system going to use the same integration, or are you possibly going to change that?
As I understand it, our systems are not integrated with Core. They were developed way before Core was, and AI is not really related to Core at all. So the actual payment of debt service should be able to be integrated with the DVC system. They have general ledger capabilities.
And we were at one point going to have a call, Adele, but our schedules were crazy to talk more about the Core interface. And we'd love to do more of that as well.
It's still on the calendar, Sarah. Angela, we're trying to get on the calendar with Donna Lynn Black. We missed one call in the past, but we're trying to get back on the calendar and understand what those integration needs are.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Angela. I see there are two hands up. I believe, Dennis, you had yours up first.
Yeah, again, I just want to echo what Sarah said. We track, we're doing a lot of that tracking in our agency, and Sarah's heard my complaints over the years, and Kim and Steve Kitowitz before, how we have it in Excel, we have it in Access. I had Fox Pro at one time, and we finally got rid of Fox Pro, but definitely being able to use some enterprise system, it would be such a benefit to the state. And we scramble every time we're doing tax questionnaires, to get data right away. We'll have a lot of information, more transparency. It sounds like a great project. Just wanted to mention that.
Thanks, Dennis. Mark, you had your hand up.
Thanks, John. Yeah, around the approach of using licensed software that sort of does this at scale for folks. I love that. Getting into a more supportable set of technologies is really important. And then understanding how we can leverage that to its greatest value, and sort of build around that in an integrated way. So that we're using its greatest capabilities and understanding what we may need on top of that, how that can best be supported. And so, I like the approach of going into to look at that set of requirements in light of the use of this tool that's very designed for the debt industry. I noticed that there are sort of cloud pieces of this, and as this evolves, we'll want to obviously be close to that from a security perspective. How that's set up, how that's used, access. The benefit of a closed system on site today is, very few people have access to that. Open it to the cloud, means we have to get security right, specifically for this critical fiscal information for the state. So, how that data is backed up, how many places it's protected in, how it's encrypted, who has access, who's checking that, goes beyond just a normal system. So I'd love for us to, as this evolves through the requirements, I'd love for us to continue to be involved in looking at the security aspects of that.
Thanks, Mark. And Kim.
Bring in users. We'd like to bring in users like Dennis, to better understand how we can make the system work, so we don't have the duplication of tracking of the same information at different levels, and have a user group included.
Kim, I think you had your hand.
I did. One thing, great conversation. Glad to see that Sarah and her team is looking to make an upgrade. Sarah, you mentioned it's high risk. It's high risk not to make the change. So, and that's why I'm really glad to see that you're taking this project on, as well as, seeking out information from others and those that are the users and getting feedback. And, we had some really great conversation around this. So I think that this is a great project, and it's a risk not to do something. So I am supportive and willing to make a motion on the floor for approval of this. John.
If there's no other comments or feedback, I think that would be a perfect time for a motion.
So you have mine to move.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Gilman. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. And again, the project's approved. We will make a request for this to be placed on an upcoming bond commission agenda.
Thank you.
And I think you're welcome. And thank you all for today. Like I mentioned, it's been several months since this committee last met. There was jam-packed today with information, but we were confident that we'd get through in the allocated time. We accomplished that. We gave you 15 minutes back of your time. And if I can get one final motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Kim. A second.
Second.
And thank you, Commissioner Gilman. All right, today's meeting of the Strategy and Investment Committee is now adjourned. Jim,
all
you
in
can
favor?
turn the recording off. Yes, all in favor.
Aye.
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 Have a good weekend. It's a holiday.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks,
Great.
everyone. Good to see you
Happy
all.
Independence Day.
Great to see you guys. Yes. Happy Independence Day.
All right. Thank you.
And welcome to